The Monster Hunter games contain maybe my favorite fictional setting in anything ever. It is a varied, fascinating place, and one that I've been trying to map out for some time. By using official information from game dialogue, books, and environmental clues, I have been slowly piecing together the world map of Monster Hunter. The previous episodes have covered all major locations up to and including Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate. And so, we reach the end of this journey, as we must now make the final additions to our map. The locations introduced in Monster Hunter World, Monster Hunter Rise, and Monster Hunter Wilds. You might be surprised to see me include Wilds here instead of giving it a bespoke mapping episode. The reason for this is that there isn't actually much to figure out in Wilds. The game's world is entirely interconnected, and thanks to the in-game map menu, we know pretty much exactly where these locations are in relation to each other. There is only a single question that we need to answer about Wilds, but we'll get to that at the end. Before we jump in, we have to make one last correction. In the previous episode, we discussed the locations of towns seen in Monster Hunter 4, which included Chico Sands. A few of you were surprised when I placed it on the mainland, as many fans commonly assume it to be on an island. I was myself curious where that belief might have started, and after some back and forth, commenter Eternal4651 pointed out that a villager request from Generations Ultimate appears to link Chico Sands to the island region around Moga. In this request, a horde of daimyo hermitors is tearing up the deserted island, which stops the felines from Chico from fishing in the area. This would seem to confirm that Chico is perhaps even on the same island as Moga. But is that really the case? One thing to keep in mind is that the felines of Chico go on their gathering missions in the surrounding regions in little boats, traveling some distance for each task. The precise wording of the request is somewhat ambiguous about if the fishing spot in question is actually adjacent to Chico, or if it's just a place the felines travel to for fishing. So while I don't think this confirms Chico being on an island, it does make me reconsider my placement of Moga. If you recall, at the end of our deductions, we had to basically roll the dice on which one of these two islands was Moga. Considering that we now have evidence of some proximity to Chico, I think I chose poorly, and will thus relocate Moga and the deserted island hunting ground over here, such that it would be feasibly reachable by boat from Chico. Thanks again to everyone who helped out with this. Alright, that is it for corrections, time to get started properly. Monster Hunter World kicked off the 5th generation with a bang, by taking place on a completely new continent called the New World. Luckily, the game also came with its own world map, redrawn here by yours truly. Our luck doesn't end here. While previous games sometimes had highly stylized map menus that were mostly useless for our purposes, World just showed us exactly where each hunting ground and town is. So, let's just add those here real quick. If only all of this would have been this easy. One thing worth mentioning here is that while I drew it as a sort of peninsula here, it isn't actually entirely clear how the guiding lands connect to the continent. So since all the locations on the continent are already taken care of, we can focus on the main question. Where is the New World continent in relation to the Old World? First things first. If we take a look at our Old World map, you might notice or remember this conspicuous western continent here. As I said in the very first episode of this series, this landmass is unique in that it is never acknowledged in any book or game, and has only ever appeared in the Hunter's Encyclopedia 2 world map. Now, I have seen some people propose that this might be an early depiction of the New World. After all, we are told in Monster Hunter World, the official complete works, that the guild had known about the existence of the New World for a long time. And while you are of course free to have your own interpretations of this world, I actually think this is not the continent we are looking for. First of all, it is way too close. The World Book specifically calls the New World a place far, far away. Meanwhile, this unnamed continent is as close to the mainland as Funrun, which is a continent hunters travel to without too much trouble when taking on quests in locations such as the Great Forest. Comparing that to how travel to the New World is depicted as this arduous and long trip, I think this proximity alone already disqualifies the Western continent. Additionally, if we look closely at that original world map, we can notice ship routes that go from the Shrade region to this continent. This also seems to disqualify it, because while the New World was known about for a long time, it was also considered entirely inaccessible until the First Fleet made it there, thanks to advances in seafaring technology. Before that, distance and weather conditions isolated the New World from any explorers. So, looking at the evidence, I think we can discard this continent as a candidate. I do, however, think we are going in the right direction. My assumption is that the New World continent is west-northwest of the Old World, so far away that it does not show up on this map. I base this assumption on two main reasons. 1. During the Fatalis story event in Monster Hunter World, the Research Commission is summoned to the Old World, which they travel to by boat. Their specific target is Castle Shrade, a place that we have a confirmed location for. Now, notably, we only see them on a boat for this journey, so assuming they were able to get to Castle Shrade just by taking a boat and without any ridiculous detours, it might indicate that they approached from the west and were able to dock directly in the Shrade region. The second piece of evidence is even stronger. In the Monster Hunter World lorebook, we get this graphic showing the Research Commission's path to the New World, which clearly shows them arriving from the east. We know for a fact that this map is north aligned thanks to the compass icon here. So, with these factors in mind, I think we can place the New World here. Now, I do want to note that in the Netflix movie Legends of the Guild, we do get a few references to the New World that seem to indicate that it is actually east. The travel log at the start of the film seems to show Zora Magdaros and the Commission as eastward bound, and the animated exposition about the Elder Crossing has Elder Dragons fly to the east. Frankly, this seems completely contradictory to the graphic we get in the book, and I think this is a case where you simply have to choose for yourself what you think and how you reconcile these conflicts. Personally, I am more than comfortable ignoring the movie in this case, and giving the game and book preferential treatment. So while this doesn't change where I'd place the New World on the map, I still wanted to mention it so that you can come to your own conclusions, perhaps differing to mine. And just like that, we can move on to Monster Hunter Rise. While World gave us an in-game map of an entirely new world, Rise kept things more old school, and was generally very vague about its locations. But that is just part of this project, so we will soldier on. First up, we have Kamura Village, the main town of Rise. Renowned for its metalworks, Kamura is a small but heavily defended village, with various fortresses surrounding its perimeter. This is no mere paranoia, for a devastating stampede of monsters nearly extinguished this community many years ago. If you watched the episode on the third generation games, then you might already know that the Rise book explicitly mentions that Kamura is near Yukumo. This makes sense, as they share both cultural and environmental similarities. But that is already all that we get in terms of direct info. Neither the game nor the book give any extra details that we could use as clues. So while we know it's somewhere around here, we can't really pinpoint it yet. To reach the truth, we ironically have to place it together with 3 other locations all at once: Elgato, the Citadel, and the Kingdom, for those who have not played Sunbreak. The Citadel is a multi-biome hunting ground that contains the ruins of an old castle town. This region is the territory of a nation only ever called the Kingdom, which establishes an outpost called Elgato to monitor the movements of monsters that led to the destruction of the Citadel. I cannot stress enough how, out of every location in this series, these 3 were by far the most convoluted and annoying to try and figure out. I spent God knows how much time discussing, arguing, and investigating these places with the help of many wonderful community members, and by the end of it, we were going a little insane. But after trying every angle, from analyzing in-game textures to using monster habitat ranges for deduction, we discovered that the answer was actually right under our noses the whole time. Namely, buried in Sunbreak's lore book. The Monster Hunter books sometimes come with a plot summary section at the very end, recapping the narrative of the respective game for people who just mashed through the dialogue. These chapters tend to be overlooked by many, myself included, because they very rarely contain a ton of new info. But, hiding among the plot summary of Sunbreak, there is this graphic. Now, if we quickly translate and redraw it for your convenience, you will see that this is a stylized map diagram showing how Kamura, the Citadel, Elgato, and the Kingdom relate to each other in space. It shows that the 4 locations essentially form a line. Kamura is firmly on the mainland, while the Citadel and Elgato are on a curved peninsula. The Kingdom itself is located on an island off the coast of that peninsula. This narrows down the possible locations of Kamura significantly. We now just have to find a place that is both close to Yukumo and that allows for this specific arrangement to exist. Initially, a ton of people who were aware of this graphic arranged Kamura to the south, turning the diagram by 90 degrees and having Elgato essentially be the southernmost tip of the continent. This seemed particularly attractive, as it fueled the idea that the kingdom that we help out in Sunbreak is in fact the long-teased nation of Aya, which was mentioned to be on this southern landmass way back in Hunter's Encyclopedia 2. And if this is how you want to interpret the world, that is fine. But I disagree, because of the Citadel. Climate zones are a little scuffed in Monster Hunter, but even so, the Citadel seems to be designed as a distinctly northern region. It consists of a taiga forest transitioning into a snowy mountain range, full with frozen caves and peaks. Placing a zone like this south of Jumbo just doesn't make sense to me. Instead, I think these 4 locations go here. Kamura to the northeast of Yukumo, with the Citadel and Elgato on this bend of the coast bordering on the small island where I'd place the kingdom. This puts the Citadel in a place that I think makes more sense, and still fulfills all the needed criteria. While I agree the kingdom being Aya would be really cool, Aya is a massive landmass. Considering the kingdom seems to be in a bit of a rough state during the events of Sunbreak, and requests the guild's help, I think their homeland being on the smaller side, and thus having fewer resources, feels a little more appropriate. But again, this all depends on where you place Yukumo anyway, so nothing is really set in stone. And so, after placing 4 locations in one fell swoop, and having already determined the locations of 2 of the hunting grounds in Rise, we are left with 3 more hunting grounds to figure out. The Shrine Ruins are a collection of ruined temple buildings nestled in a mountain valley, with deep scars that tell of a calamity that shook the region. This is another very easy location to place. It is explicitly stated to be near Kamura, and is part of the same mountain chain. So I'd say we just place it here. The Frost Islands are a frigid collection of small islands in a cold sea, covered in snow and tormented by storms. Ferocious creatures roam here, and the decaying skull of a massive dragon alongside a shipwreck are the final witnesses of an epic battle that took place here long ago. This hunting ground is a little tougher to pin down. For starters, as an ice map, the immediate instinct is, of course, to place it somewhere in the north. The Rise book seems to support that, with a very intense passage describing the cold. Stepping into that land, it was as if the idea of heat itself had been erased from the world. This is a very strong description, especially if we compare it to the one about the 3rd generation tundra in Hunter's Encyclopedia 3. So I'm quite comfortable putting it somewhere north. But where? The book gives us some more hints. The Frost Islands are part of an archipelago, that is to say, an island chain. Moreover, the zone we visit is specifically located in the center of such a chain, which is why ocean waves don't reach it. As that is all we get, I'm going to place the Frost Islands here, north of the tundra and behind this larger island. That way, I can imagine that the arrangement of the island and the larger continent to the north of it would allow the Frost Islands to avoid wavefall, which would fit with what we are told in the book. The final hunting ground from Rise that we must cover are the lava caverns. This is a volcanic area, with flooded cave systems that create a dichotomous landscape of fire and water. Various ruins litter the place, now inhabited mostly by felines and mealinxes. This is the last singular hunting ground we must place in this series, and so, naturally, it is a bit of a pain. The Rise book gives us 2 facts about the lava caverns that are relevant here. For one, it is reached by boat. Fair enough, that is even visible in-game. Second, it includes an odd paragraph about how while the caverns have a similar ecosystem to Kamura, which is why one finds wirebugs here, they are actually not that close to the village. And that is pretty much it. Seeing as our only real criteria is access to water and distance to Kamura, I think we can pull out the all-reliable and place the lava caverns on the Erude Peninsula, the only place in the old world with confirmed volcanic activity. This specific placement puts the hunting ground further away from Kamura than the sandy plains and flooded forest, which were both stated to be somewhat close to the village by comparison. But the caverns still remain in the general region of influence that we have established for Kamura. And with that, we have placed every single location from the 1st to 5th generations of Monster Hunter. Which means there is only one question left to answer. Where does Wilds take place? The region that we visit during the events of Monster Hunter Wilds is initially called the Forbidden Lands, but is renamed into the Eastlands during the story. With a name like that, and considering that the characters keep mentioning that they are going east, we can safely assume that this region is, surprise, somewhere in the east. One placement for the Forbidden Lands that I have seen suggested by fans is here, in the central east of the mainland. I, however, disagree with this placement, and not just because it messes with the map we've established so far. In fact, let's quickly revert our map to only include 100% confirmed locations. Do you see the problem? We know for a fact that hunters travel through this region, either when they go from Jumbo to the Snowy Mountains, or from Poke to the Terosu jungle. This really doesn't fit with what we have been told about the Forbidden Lands, which were completely cut off from access by outsiders for 1,000 years. So no, I don't think the Eastlands are here. Instead, I am going to place the events of Monster Hunter Wilds on my favorite continent, Funron, specifically in the far east portion of the landmass that we don't see on this map. I have a few reasons for that. 1. As we just disqualified the eastern chunk of the main continent, this is just the next best option. 2. We know for a fact that Funron has a massive forest area, as this is where we find the Great Forest Hunting Ground. And when we see the guild survey the east-west buffer zone in the prologue to Wilds, they appear to be flying over just such a dense and large forest area. And 3. If we assume that the ancient tower is on Funron, it sure does fit with the entire ancient civilization theme that the Eastlands have. As the entire region is full of ruins from the mighty city of Wyveria, the tower could well be one of them. Again, this is a judgment call that you have to make for yourselves, but I think this is where Monster Hunter Wilds goes. And we are done! This is, as of June 2025, the full map of the world of Monster Hunter as reconstructed by me. This was an extremely fun project, and I'm so glad that many of you enjoyed it alongside me. As we'll get more locations in future expansions and games, I'll gladly update this as we go. I am more than happy to do another episode to see where the locations from Monster Hunter Wilds Swampborn go. Additionally, since Wilds seems to have an interest in explicitly discussing aspects of the world and setting that were previously only implied, there is a non-zero chance that we will get an official updated world map in the inevitable Monster Hunter Wilds lorebook. If that does happen, I'll do an update video comparing how much stuff I got wrong. But for now, this is it. Thank you all so much for watching, and a huge thank you to all the people who've supported this project over its long duration. A big thank you to all the lore masters in the community who helped me out in the various Discord channels. You were all incredible, and I'm so glad we finally got it done. Of course, I would not dream to sign off without also saying a big thank you to all the people who support this channel via Patreon or YouTube channel members. I would like to especially thank Unfortunately Not Zako, British Empire, Just a Hunter, Meta Defiance, Thomas Caldecott, Autumns, Anjanath Tamer's Ambience, Wandering Soul, Stormbreaker Kai, Joshua Ellison, Uthduna is an Octopus, Chocolate Coat, Precum King, Joey Tribby 58, Makamawi, Yuriv, CJ, Carl the Crab, Christopher Bronson, Harpier, Suddenly, Molly Mockery, Rose, Zyperius Folkvar, Hamburger Discord, Zaffy, Theopuz, Lufish, Morgul Blank, Tacti Wolf, Thyla Zero, Jacob Coleman, Hellbug Hunter, Shebo, M1Have12, Regal Eagle, Wronger97, Quali, Mad Hat 124, My Name Gone, The Dollarfish, Sheba, Ryan Hook, Veraxis, Thick, Kuroneko, Zion H.V. Augensen, Alistair in Wonderland, Jacob Denumnut, Soruka, Sir Newt Newt, Eevee, Rambling Robin, Hashi, Black Ace 202, Dissy, Habbo Himbro Mirror, Magenta Magenta, Russell, Vulgar Beast, Person 212, Claire Miboon, Oakwood Tree, Mr. Pyramid, Makot 02, Nils Schlatter, Iron Camel, and of course, Nah, I'm going to bed. Take care everyone, I'll see you around next time. Bye bye, happy hunting.